What about this Ken Paxton, the top law enforcement officer in Texas? He's the attorney general there. He was about to be served with a subpoena in a lawsuit related to funding, abortion rights funding. And an affidavit was filed in federal court today that when the process server went to his house, he ran like a little scared chicken. Paxton tweeted after he went and hid someplace that he left with his wife, who is a Christian fascist state senator in Texas. Her name is Angela. And Ken and Angela fled, according to Ken, in order to avoid a stranger lingering outside my home and showing concern about the safety and well-being of my family. And oh, you lying son of a bitch, you. That's one thing you can count on Christian terrorists. They'll lie until hell freezes over. Oh, my God. Now, the process server was a guy named Martin Herrera. And he said he arrived in Paxton's home, not in his home, but at his home, in the morning yesterday with the goal of serving the subpoena for a federal court hearing, which was supposed to be Tuesday, yesterday, in a lawsuit brought by nonprofit organizations that are seeking to fund out-of-state abortions for Texans. This is according to the sworn affidavit. So the nonprofits have been interfered with, since Texas has this draconian law now that says to a woman, your body belongs to the state. If you don't like it, bitch, leave. But your body belongs to the state. You don't like it, bitch, leave. And the lawsuit was brought by nonprofits who raised money to assist women who need an abortion to find one in a different state and to get there. Anyway, when the process server, Ernesto Martin Herrera, showed up at the house, a woman identifying herself as Angela Paxton answered the door and said that her husband was on the phone inside the home. What, a landline? Come on, Angela, you lying snake. But, she told the process server, Ken was, quote, in a hurry to leave. So he said he'd wait, the process server did. He said he would wait, and nearly an hour later, he saw Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, sneak out the back door. Herrera wrote in his report to the court, quote, as soon as he saw me and heard me call his name out, he turned around and ran, that's in capital letters, ran back inside the house to the same door in the garage, end quote. A few moments later, Angela Paxton left the house and got into a truck sitting in the driveway. And all of a sudden, she was joined by her husband. And Ken ignored Mr. Herrera calling his name, and the vehicle drove off. So Paxton went to his hiding place, and he tweeted in response to a Texas Tribune report on what happened. Ken Paxton, the indicted felony, he's accused of several felonies, and he's been indicted. He tweeted, quote, this is a ridiculous waste of time, and the media should be ashamed of themselves, end quote. Yes, Ken, the media should be ashamed of themselves, not you, you fucking criminal, you and your bitch wife, assisting, interfering, obstructing justice. Is that what Angela is now involved with? Ken, both of you now are criminals? I think so. And then the Ken doll added this, quote, all across the country, conservatives have faced threats to their safety, many threats that receive scant coverage or condemnation from the mainstream media. Oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, I use the term Christian terrorists now because that's what these son of a bitches are. They're not Muslims. They're not Jews. They're not Hindus. They are Christians, so they say. But I use that term frequently because, well, you know the reason. You know why I use that term. These are the people who would just beat the shit out of you with their Bibles and their the rip-offs that they have pulled from other religions to form this bloody thing they call Christianity. So anyway, his wife Angela now, I wonder, does he call her Angie? Hey, Angie, bring me a beer. His wife, who's a state senator, Angie, drove off in the getaway truck, driving her indicted husband to get away from the subpoena. Is that obstruction of justice? I would think it would be, but what do I know about Texas law? So anyway, the process server, Mr. Herrera, said he had to leave the subpoena on the ground. He just left it there. I thought you were supposed to put it in somebody's hand, Mr. Herrera. Now, Paxton is facing just a whole goddamn bunch of legal troubles, and he's trying to win his third term in the November election coming up. And like I mentioned to you, he said he avoided the server because he was concerned. He was concerned it might have been, well, I don't know, an immigrant, an illegal one with a gun was going to shoot me. Maybe he was a Muslim terrorist. What's the name of that group? ISIS. That's who it was. These bastards. So on Twitter on Monday night, Paxton went on, he wrote this, quote, "It's clear that the media it's media is plural, you dumb shit. But he wrote, it's clear that the media wants to drum up another controversy involving my work as Attorney General. So they're attacking me for having the audacity to avoid a stranger lingering outside my home. And I was showing concern about the safety and well-being of my family." Oh, God. Now, yesterday, then, the judge who heard the lawsuit by the nonprofit groups that want to help Texans pay for abortions out of state, the judge granted Paxton's request to quash the subpoena. Now, Paxton, this indicted criminal, wrote in court documents that he and his wife were accosted by the process server. Yeah, they chased me out of the house, into the truck, into the garage, back in the house, over the fence, back to the truck, over the garage, into the house. The judge also granted Paxton's request to seal the affidavit, which had been accessible to the public for a few hours while this little melodrama went on. Now, there's a little bit more here. Ernesto Herrera, the process server, said in the affidavit they had to file with the court about what happened. He said he arrived at Ken's house in the Dallas suburb Monday morning and knocked on the front door, which has a window in it. And Mr. Herrera said that the Ken doll could initially be seen approaching the door. But then when, he's the Attorney General, he knows what a process server looks like. When he saw it was a process server, he turned back. And his old lady, Angela, the Christian terrorist state senator in Texas, she opened the door and she told her husband, or she told the process server, her husband's on the phone. And then, like I mentioned earlier, an hour later, Paxton walked out of the house, went to the garage, turned around, ran back. His old lady ran out, got in the truck. Paxton came out, jumped in the rear side door of the truck in the driveway, got in the driver's seat, and started the truck. Herrera wrote this: "A few minutes later, I saw Mr. Paxton run from the door inside the garage towards the rear door behind the driver's side." So Herrera's like, what the fuck is going on here? So he just left the subpoena on the ground beside the truck, and the two fugitives drove off without taking it. Now, in case you're interested, Paxton was indicted don't exaggerate, Mike, 7 years ago on state securities fraud charges, but he still hasn't faced trial. There have been long delays brought about by Paxton's legal team over some of the charges and whether the felony case should be heard. And also, there has been some argument on Paxton's part about who should pay for the special prosecutors. So the FBI is investigating the Ken doll over these allegations of corruption that 8 of Ken Paxton's own deputy attorney generals filed against him 2 years ago. Corruption. You see how rotten this fucker is. The Texas State Bar also brought a lawsuit seeking to, discipline the Ken doll for allegedly misleading the U.S. Supreme Court in his suit that sought to challenge Joe Biden's victory in the 2020 election. Remember that? Where 8 of these states tried to get the election overturned, they filed a lawsuit. The Supreme Court, I think that was a ruling 8-1, with the hunk sitting in the back corner, Uncle Clarence, not saying a word. 8-1, they say, get the fuck out of here with this, Paxton. Paxton, of course, denies everything. What's he going to do? He's a Christian, so he's going to deny everything. Prove it, motherfucker, that's his line of defense. Prove it. Of course, he won't stand still long enough to get a subpoena telling him what he has to do in order for the state to prove it. He's being challenged this time by a Democrat, Rochelle Garza. This is the first time she's run for office. She's a former ACLU attorney. And Garza wrote on Twitter yesterday after all this shit unfolded, Ms. Garza wrote, quote, Texans deserve an attorney general who will uphold the law, not run from it, end quote. But that's what these politicians in Texas do. Look at Ted Cruz. Look how that little rabbity son of a bitch took off and ran like a scared little shit when the power went out. It got so cold, people in Texas lost their power. Remember that? This little son of a bitch heads for the beaches in Mexico. But this is what politicians in Texas do. The Christian terrorist ones. They're goddamn scum. And because they're Christian, they know they can get away with it. This is the part that just drives me crazy. These crazy Christian psychopaths, they can do any fucking thing they want to, up to and including murder, and still have a free pass, do not, collect $200. Go pass, go, and go straight to heaven. Because all they have to do after a life of just filth and crime and disgust and terrorism and poison and meanness and hatefulness, all they have to do, if they have a moment before they croak, is say, oh, Jesus, I'm really, really sorry. Please forgive me. Take my sin. Escort me into heaven. Clunk. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.